My name is Ashish Sharma and I am pursuing my master's degree at GIC. I completed my BTech in civil engineering from Islamic University, Aligarh Muslim University, historical university of India, a university of India which is more than 120 years old and among the top-notch universities of India as compared to IITs, BHU and other top-notch universities of India. So during my early childhood, I got the opportunity to study in a Christian school, in a school of Christian missionary. So I got to have some understanding to some Christianity as well. So whatever idea I do have about Christianity are all those from my early childhood. After that, I invested 12 precious years of my life into the Islamic University. So I completed my BTech, my whole schooling from a renowned Islamic university, that is Aligarh Muslim University, from Indian subcontinent, which is quite renowned in Indian subcontinent, which attracts people from different countries, from different Gulf countries and from other countries, Asian countries as well. When we talk about, I picked up this topic, global impact of Indian culture, Indian spirituality as an art of living. Well, brothers and sisters, you may doubt it that why I picked up Indian spirituality. Because spirituality is not a monopoly of a small section of a society. No country, no nation can claim that we have the whole control or we are the only one who have given all achievement, all contribution to the world. So I won't say that India is the only country who is at the leading edge in this science or in this inner engineering or this science which is dealing with achieving human consciousness or which is dealing with the achievement of spirit or which is dealing with achieving the inner peace, the peace of the soul. Today we can see that our life has become so much fast-paced. We have done all whatever we could do in achieving all the developments in the technology. But still we are not happy. The whole universe, the nature, the sun and the planets and the earth and the different planets are working perfectly, all right. Still sometimes we feel that something is missing within us. There is something which we need to delve deeper into our soul. There is something within us, inside us, that we need to realize. It is the high time that we need to seek that truth within us. We have done all our efforts, we have applied all our science and technology. Today we are more interested in the offshoots of technology rather than the technology itself. When we talk about technology or science and technology, we can see that we are more interested in the technology rather than the science itself. But technology is nothing. Technology is just an output or just a realm or a part of science. So we should be more interested in the science rather than the technology. Why human beings are more interested in technology? Because it gives us gadgets. It gives us high-end gadgets. It gives us computers. It gives us supercomputers and all that. But I do wonder that all these technologies, all whatever which human race has tried to achieve, the scientists are coming out with new discoveries. But from few years we have seen, I am very well impressed with Western scientist Michio Kaku, who is trying to relate ourselves with this whole universe. Because I as an individual, I am not Ashish, I am not an individual, I am a part of this whole universe. I am a part of this whole solar system, I am a part of this whole universe. And our bodies receive certain impulses. Every time our cells, our bodies receive certain impulses, certain electrical signals. Now where do these signals come from? Where are we getting these signals? These signals are imparted from our brain. And to the brain, these signals comes from the heart. And the heart receives those signals from the spirit or from the solar system. And those signals are coming to the solar system from the whole universe. So the energies of the universe are interrelated. We are a part of this whole system, this whole universe, which is something more than our expectation or which is something beyond our creativity or beyond human frontiers of imagination. We try to discover everything today. When we talk about science and technology has done wonders, but still we are at the crossroads. When we have not done enough work to realize our inner self, our inner soul, what does happiness means in its true essence. Today, human beings are doing their level best to make their life pleasurable. We are seeking for the external pleasures, but we are forgetting what is within us. Just like air, our soul, our spirit don't wants to be bounded, don't wants to live in some box or to live in some cage. Our soul, our spirit wants to mix with the whole universe, to experience the whole universe with its all diversity, with its all true meaning. Well, it's a long discussion. When we talk about India, India has always been associated with its contribution to Indian spirituality, to this vast field of spirituality. When we talk about spirituality, I would try to scratch the surface because it's a very short time to dig deep into this vast field of spirituality, because it has no limits, no foundations, it is an infinite. When we try to count, then we can start to count, but we can count till infinity. So spirituality is something which is there from minus infinity to plus infinity. So it is beyond our scope. And of course, when we witness, when we think that we can't experience spirituality within our physical senses, within 5 senses, it is something beyond the physicality. It is something not from the outside world. It is something fixing within us. So I would try to focus something about what has been some of the practices in Indian culture and society. How India is different from the rest of the world. What we have contributed to the world in terms of spirituality. How India has been known worldwide for its values. India has always produced some of the greatest thinkers of the world, some of the Nobel laureates. That's not the topic. Science and technology is not the topic of my discussion, so I don't want to deviate from the topic. Topic of discussion is spirituality, and when we talk about Indian spirituality, then I'm here not to market for some Indian spirituality or some Indian stuff or some Indian culture or tradition, but to talk about spirituality as spirituality for everyone, not as a monopolistic trend or as secluded for a particular society within some domains. So moving next, let me tell you some of the basic facts about India, although most of you are aware and this slide is not relevant to my talk. India is 5,000 year old ancient civilization, and I don't actually believe in numbers like what these figures or what this number indicates. It is something even more than that. We have 325 languages spoken. We have 29 states and 5 union territories, and each state has its own culture, own language. So India is a culture. India is a country where if a person becomes prime minister from some different state, then he is free to deliver his speech in his own language. So this is the kind of diversity we have shared with India. Next slide. Rabindranath Tagore, a great poet and writer of India's national anthem, he says one of the very beautiful quote, which is finest of his times, which reflects something about India's culture. It says something that what our culture or religion or what Indianism is or Hinduism is dead. Because when we talk about India, then if we don't talk about the spirituality, then Indian culture or Indian tradition remains a mystery. Because whenever we talk about India, spirituality has to be taken into account, and it's all in its true essence. Rabindranath Tagore said that oneness amongst the men, the advancement of unity and diversity, this has been the core religion of India. I think most of you are aware with Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore also said something about Korea, the land of the morning calm, or something like that. Next slide. Swami Vivekananda was one of the spiritual seekers, one of the greatest thinkers, and one of the greatest spiritual leaders of India. He preached spirituality or Indian spirituality in a speech at Chicago, USA. In 1893, 11th September 1893, these are some of the contents of this speech from Chicago. When you search on YouTube, you can find his original speech on YouTube. It is still there very much on the internet. So Swami Vivekananda, when he delivered his lecture, he delivered his keynote at US, he inspired the millions. There were millions of people who followed him, who were so much inspired. And I was just going through the internet, I saw some of the people appreciating his intelligence, the sort of level which he achieved in the spirituality, which is so different from the crowd. Why his lecture was different from other people. When he delivered his lecture at Parliament of Religions, where people from different walks of life assembled and gathered, they were talking about their religions, but then he talked about Hinduism, or he talked about Indianism, how Indianism and Hinduism is different from the crowd. He said that, I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. This is something which lies at the core of Indian identity. This is something which lies at the core of being a Hindu, or which lies at the core of Hinduism. Hinduism or Hindu is not a religion in itself. Hindu is a thought, or it's a feeling, it's a sensation. A true Hindu or a true religious person who is an Indian at heart, who is a true Hindu, he never says that this religion is false, or this is true, or this is fake. He accepts all religions as true, because there is beauty in all religions, and we seek to draw inspiration from all religions, because all religions have produced some of the finest things, some of the greatest thinkers of all time. Every religion has some kernel of truth. If we go into the depths of any religion we study, you will find a beauty in all religions. There are differences although in all religions, but these differences are then to be perceived as to the perfection, to come closer, rather than as a means to hatred or to discrimination. All religions have beauty, and that's why we can enjoy the beauty of all the religions. So he said that I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. India has always been known for giving shelter to the people who have been thrown away from their very lands, from their civilization. When the peoples of different nations and different countries, when they were thrown out of their countries, when they were having no shelter, nowhere, no place to go, then India helped its role. India, since time immemorial, India has been a culture and tradition and a country which has always fostered the growth and which has always given shelter to the entire mankind, irrespective of their races, culture, caste or religion. No matter what, no matter where are you coming from, which religion do you belong, which nation do you belong, no matter where are you coming from. It does not matter where are we coming from, but what matters is where are we going finally. Our religions, our boundaries, our nations, or caste, creed, or religion does not matter. What matters is ultimately what we are seeking. India has been associated, India has produced and then marvels in spirituality, in the sense that every Indian, even if you go to some village in India, a layman, you will find what do you need, what do you want. Let's suppose some example, there is some lady at some Indian village, and she goes to some guru, she goes to some rishi, and she asks, the guru asks the lady, what do you want ultimately? Then she will say, I want mukti, I want moksha, I want that liberation. When we talk about mukti, or when we talk about the finest spirituality, or when we talk about bliss or the permanent happiness, then we talk about liberation. We talk about liberation from this vicious circle of birth and death, that is moksha, to ultimately reach that ultimate truth, moksha. Next, can you have the next slide, please? Some of the great, since time immemorial, most of the thinkers from West or any other part of the nation, they have always appreciated the beauty and the contribution of India. Albert Einstein said, when I read Bhagavad Gita and reflect how God created this universe, everything else seems superfluous. He said one more thing, that we owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worldwide discovery could have ever been made. When Mark Twain, one of the guys belonging from Western culture, he traveled the length and breadth of India, then after traveling all parts of India, he said that whatever could be done by mankind, whatever could be done by man and God on this land has been done. So why so many people said so many beautiful things about India? There must be something different. There must be something different from the crowd. There are many countries which have done marvels in the technology. They have achieved a great deal of things in the science, but there is still a lot of things which needs to be fixed. When we talk about science and technology, they have done wonders when it comes to fixing the outside world. But why we are still so unhappy? Why we are still not peaceful? Why we are still feel that something is missing within us? That we need to do something. We need to act within the moment, with the knowledge of that moment, with the judgment of the moment. Next slide. When we talk about the history of Hinduism, then Hinduism is a collective term applied to many philosophies and religious traditions native to India. But what I have felt personally is that I've never sensed any sort of restrictions or any sort of obligations imposed upon me. What I have felt personally is that I have been always free to practice whatever I wanted, to read Bible, to go to the mosque, or to go to Gurudwara, the religion of Sikhs, or whatsoever. Because when we talk about Hinduism, then Hinduism is a religion where different members of the family can have different religions. It is not restricted to a certain religion or certain practices or certain dogma or certain belief systems. If there are, I would like to give you an example. For example, there are 5 members in a family. Then each one of us is free to practice within his own, as per his own convenience, as per his own flexibility. One thing I would like to mention, that when we talk about Hinduism, then Hinduism don't have any such belief that you go there, you go to this temple, or you go there, you do that, or you follow these restrictions. Even if you think that God is a man, still you are a good Hindu. You can think, oh no, I think that God is a demon. Then of course you are free. Then still you are a good Hindu. You can think that I believe that snake is God. You are still a Hindu, a good Hindu. You can think that this stone is a God. You are still free. You can still be a good Hindu. So we have never imposed any sort of restrictions. Hinduism in its true essence has all the flexibility. So Hinduism is basically known as Sanatana Dharma. When we talk about the eternal teachings, and we have next slide. This is a video which I collected. This shows some of the experimental, scientific evidences behind this Hinduism.
High-resolution satellite images have verified descriptions in the Rig Veda of the descent of the ancient Saraswati River from its source in the Himalayas to the Arabian Sea. Pure and her course from the mountains to the ocean, alone of streams, Saraswati hath listened. The mighty Saraswati River and its civilization are referred to in the Rig Veda more than 50 times, proving that the drying up of the Saraswati River was subsequent to the origin of the Rig Veda, pushing this date of origin further back into antiquity, casting further doubt on the imaginary date for the so-called Aryan invasion. This satellite image clearly shows the Indus-Saraswati River system extending from the Himalayas to the Arabian Sea. Here, the Indus River is on the left, outlined in blue, while the Saraswati River basin is outlined in green. The black dots are the many archaeological sites or previous settlements along the banks of the now dry Saraswati River. The drying up of the Saraswati River around 1900 BCE is confirmed archaeologically. Following major tectonic movements, or plate shifts in the Earth's crust, the primary cause of this drying up was due to the capture of the Saraswati River's main tributaries, the Sutlej and the Drishtivati, by other rivers. Although early studies based on limited archaeological evidence produced contradictory conclusions, recent independent studies, such as that of archaeologist James Schaffer in 1993, showed no evidence of a foreign invasion in the Indus-Saraswat civilization, and that a cultural continuity could be traced back for millennia. In other words, archaeology does not support the Aryan invasion theory. Marine archaeology has also been utilized in India off the coast of the ancient port city of Dwarka in Gujarat, uncovering further evidence in support of statements in the Vedic scriptures. An entire submerged city at Dwarka, the ancient port city of Lord Krishna, with its massive fort walls, piers, wharves, and jetty, has been found in the ocean as described in the Mahabharata and other Vedic literatures. This Sanskrit verse from the Moshila Parva of the Mahabharata describes the disappearance of the city of Dwarka into the sea. After all the people had set out, the ocean flooded Dwarka, which still teemed with wealth of every kind. Whatever portion of land was passed over, the ocean immediately flooded over with its waters. Dr. S.R. Rao, formerly of the Archaeological Survey of India, has pioneered marine archaeology in India. Marine archaeological findings seem to corroborate descriptions in the Mahabharata of Dwarka as a large, well-fortified, and prosperous port city, which was built on land reclaimed from the sea.
Well, now let's talk about global reach of Indian culture. It is believed that Indian religion or Indian pluralism or the diversity in India has given rise to many different religions like Buddhism, Jainism and Sikhism. All of us are well aware about Gautam Buddha, the greatest spiritual leader who practiced Buddhism within Indian, he was from Indian subcontinent, and after he left India, he preached Buddhism. Now talking about Vedic philosophy, Vedas are the oldest written text on our planet today. They date back to the beginning of Indian civilization and are the earliest literary records of the human mind. They have been passed through oral traditions for over 10,000 years and first appeared in written form between 2,500 to 5,000 years ago. Veda means knowledge in Sanskrit. Now let's have a talk about what is the significance of this Mahamantra or this mantra, Om. This is a very significant tool when we talk about practicing meditation. This is not merely a syllable, but it has a whole story behind it. We know that the Creator is responsible for the creation, and human beings in different forms and different races are only the part of creation of the Creator. So how can we connect ourselves with the Creator? How can we find a link between the creation and the Creator? So this is a mantra. When we practice and chant this mantra again and again, this in a form of brain exercise, then we find some connections with that true power, with the Creator of this world. So let us go through the significance of each word. When we represent Om with these three letters A, U, M, that A denotes the power to create the universe. Power to create the universe means one of the cause of Trinity, Trimurti, Brahma, or the Creator who created this whole universe. And U means the power to preserve the universe. Like in India, most of the saints and sages believe in Vishnu, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, three gods. So U means it's the power to preserve the universe. whenever we feel, whenever there are some catastrophe or some destruction on this planet, then U represents that it is the power to preserve the universe, and M denotes the power to dissolve the universe. Can we represent? This slide shows that while we do have billions of gods in India, but these three are the significant, are the most significant. The majority of people who are practicing Hindu religion, they believe in three systems, the Trinity, or in Hindi or in Sanskrit we say the Trimurti. Creator, Brahma is considered to be the creator of the universe, whereas Vishnu is considered to be the preserver of this universe, and Shiva is considered to be the destroyer of the universe. All of us are well aware about ancient Indian epics. Ramayana, the first Indian epic consisting of 24,000 verses divided into 7 books composed about 6,500 years ago. And Mahabharata is the longest epic in the world literature with 100,000 two-line stanzas first composed about 5,000 years ago. Can we have the next slide? Now this is the important part, although that late one, what is the true meaning of spirituality? Can I ask anyone of you to define spirituality as per your perception, please? Is there anyone who can give your views on spirituality? What does spirituality mean to you? Yes.
Well, it's actually difficult to define itself, but I'm saying that the opposite of spirituality is materialism, something like that. I guess it's the right. More, the spiritual, not the material. That's my understanding. Actually, it's a little difficult.
Anyways, a very good attempt in defining spirituality. Is there anyone else who would like to, define, make an attempt to define the spirituality?
Seeking the life in connection with God.
That's again a great definition, at least an attempt, close to something, we are. Well, all of us know that our body is of two types. One is the gross body and other is subtle body. When we talk about gross body, that gross body means our liver, are different components of our body, brain, heart, and all different parts of our body. Then they comes in the gross body. Whereas there is another dimension of the human body which is spiritual, which is subtle body, or the spirit, or which contains our soul, or all the human feelings, kindness, love, charity, dedication, or love of mankind. So it is not that easy task to define spirituality. If you type the keyword spirituality in Google or in YouTube, you will find millions of links. So it is really difficult job to define spirituality. So if we say that spirituality is love of mankind, then I have no problem. We can say that it is human nature or human love or something. Does it really mean that is it love of mankind, is it love for human nature, or is it love for human feelings, or is it love of mankind or something like that? I don't think that it is only love of mankind, or it is only related with mankind or with stuff like that. The other aspect is we can say that spirituality is related to non-human world. When we say about non-human world, then it's nature, trees, plants, rivers, mountains. So is it that way? Is it non-human world? Is it the love of nature? Then I have no problem. We can say that it is the love of nature. I still doubt that it is not the definition of spirituality. Spirituality is not the love of nature only. It is still something more than that. It is beyond that perception. It is beyond that dimension still. When we talk about spirituality, some of you might think that it is well related with yoga as well, or physical fitness. Spirituality is still not related with yoga or yogic kriyas or anulom vilom or breathing exercises or practicing om for mantra or for finding some connection with that God, practicing some mantras or meditation. Spirituality is still cannot be contained with this dimension. of yoga or human health or physical health. Then what is spirituality? What spirituality is all about? Why we are bothering about spirituality? If spirituality was one of those which I defined, then why do we have this discussion? Why are we gathered here? We gathered here to realize the true meaning of spirituality in its true sense. Spirituality is something to seek liberation. Spirituality is something to go beyond our physical boundaries. Today, whatever actions we do, whatever progress has been done by science and technology, or by man, or with reason, everything else, we are so much relying on pleasures, or seeking outward pleasure. Two of you were right and very close to the situation to define spirituality. We are so much sense-perceived. Whatever actions we do, whatever activity we do, that is always influenced by our internal senses. All of us have 5 senses. The moment I seek any pleasure or I do anything, not some of us, while majority of us, I would say, we are addicted to wine, or we do have certain different addictions. So why do we feel an urge to take wine or any other addiction for that reason? Because we are so much dependent on our senses that we seek pleasure through senses. Our way of dealing with the life is highly based on sense perception. It is not based on going beyond the material world. It should be based on going beyond the material world. It should be based on experiencing that inexistential sort of thing, which we can only go by after deep exercise. Whatever activities we do since our childhood, whatever actions we do, whatever exercises we do, all are based to strengthen our sense perception. But we are not doing any sort of exercises to release, to uncoil the serpent power or the hidden power or the kundalini. In Hinduism we believe, in India we believe about kundalini power. Each one of us have the kundalini power. Kundalini power or the serpent power, we say. There are 7 chakras. I will tell you, we will discuss the concept of chakras later. When the kundalini power is not released, is not unleashed, then our kundalini is in the Mooladhara chakra. So if we practice the art of spirituality, if we meditate, then we can do our stuff to take kundalini to different levels. So spirituality, I think spirituality is something different. Spirituality, when we talk about self-awareness or self-assessment, then spirituality means that who am I? Why did I came to this world? Did I came to work like machines, to work like robots, or I do have some different dimensions added to me? Why am I born with this body? Or why am I created like this way? It's about seeking questions. It's not about belief. So from the perspective of spirituality, I don't see any differences between a theist and a theist. Can we have your opinions, please, in defining theist and atheist? A believer and disbeliever in God. What is your perception if a person is a theist? If a person is not believing in God? Should we hate that person if a person is not believing in God? Well, this is the common belief that those people who are believing in God, they think an atheist is not a good person. So from dimension of spirituality, from the new definition of spirituality, even a disbeliever in God, a theist, is not a bad person. The irony with all of us is that we are not ready to accept that we don't know anything about spirituality, or we don't know any aspect of spirit, which can only be realized after working to develop our kundalini power, or to awake our kundalini power within us. But we are too much, adhered with our sense perception and the materialistic world, and we are seeking pleasures from outside, and we don't have any time to delve deeper within ourselves, to think about ourselves. Why did I came to this world? What is my reason to come to this world? Another aspect of spirituality is to talk about spontaneity. Since our childhood, we are feeded with information. We have parental teaching, we have school teaching, we have teaching derived from religions, we have teaching derived from our environment, we have teaching from our neighbors. We are so much loaded with the information. So whatever problems we face in our life, we say, oh shit, God, why did you create this to me? Why will you put me only in such a situation? Well, if we are a spiritual person or if we are a spiritual seeker, we can give a different dimension. We can behave differently. Whatever we behave today we say, whatever we behave today is a more of a reaction. We can see the wars between different countries. We can see war between US and Iraq. We can see the reaction of US to Iraq. We can see the reaction of different countries to different countries because they are not perceiving the inner realities. Whatever actions we do, our actions are more of the reaction rather than the truth or sensual action. We are not living a sensual life. When most of us doubt that what is the difference between sensual life or between the spiritual life. Sensual life is something like we are so much preconceived, we are so much dependent on our five senses. Whereas spiritual life is something looking beyond what we are, looking for the reasons. Why do I came to this world? If we face any problems, then it is not that we should not load that CD. We should not go back to the CD, to that floppy, that we have that knowledge, we have information, we have lots of information since our childhood, that we are preoccupied with the information. We are not open to the new thoughts. We are not open to the new ideas. Whosoever invented new things today in this world, they always face challenges because we are not open to the new ideas, new thoughts. If someone tells us something different, then we are just shocked. Our reaction is something different. We are not open to their ideas. So when we talk about spirituality is something to think beyond your existence, to think beyond your sense perception. It is when we talk about spirituality, it is something to go out of your fishbowl. We are living in a cage. We are living in a fishbowl. It's about question. It's about questioning. It's about thinking what is I not have done. I have not yet done. What is that I have not yet think? What is that which I have not yet created? What is that which I yet need to do in this world? What is that? What are my fears and why are those fears? What are the reasons behind those fears? There is one quote which goes on for fears. Our darkest fears, our deepest fears are not those that we are inadequate. Our deepest fears are those that we are adequate beyond certain measure. So we need to realize that when we practice spirituality, that it is not a single person who can be spiritual. It was not only Jesus, it was not only Swami Vivekananda, it was not only Gautam Buddha that he has certain different energies or different creativity or they were born like that. They were not born like that, but they did something to achieve spirituality or to achieve that level of mentality. Can we have the next slide, please? This is a video which will show you the scientific explanation that why we need to be bothered. It's the high time to be bothered, to be worried, to be very worried. This will show you some recent developments in science and technology from the perspective of quantum mechanics and quantum physics, that how scientists at different countries are trying to relate ourselves with the whole universe, how we are related with the whole universe, how we are a part of the whole universe. Once we understand that each one of us here sitting in this room is not a single identity, each one of us is connected within ourselves. I think about famous scientist Michio Kaku. Michio Kaku said that in this room, if we are 40 people or 50 people, then we are not 50 separate identities, but we are energies. If we view in this room with the quantum microscope or with the perspective of quantum physics, we will find that each one of us is generating certain vibrations, is generating certain energies. And if we view in this room with quantum microscope, we will find that each one of us is within the boundaries of others. We are not different creations. We are all linked together with our energies, with our vibrations, with the energies which we are emitting. So each one of us is connected with each other. It's a very motivating video. Let's look at it.
bodies were so important. The rotation and orbit of all that makes up our universe serves as a clock to map changes and transitions. This helped the ancients understand that the change of the heavenly bodies were a mirror to the changes of all existence. December 21st, 2012 is simply a natural transition from one form of energy to the next, the transcendental evolution of man. This date is what's known as 0 point. Our sun, as well as our planet Earth, is losing its magnetic field as the Earth is slowing in its rotation. All the while, its base resonant frequency, also known as the Schumann cavity resonance, is increasing in accordance with the predictable sequence of the Fibonacci theory. At a cellular level, our bodies respond to an electromagnetic pulse. The ancients called this the sacred circuit. The cells receive this pulse from the brain, which receives its pulse from the heart, which receives its pulse from the earth. This pulse comes from the solar system, which from there comes from the galaxy, which ultimately comes from our entire universe. We literally share a pulse with all of existence. Yet another example of everything being one. For as long as scientists have been recording the Earth's pulse, it has remained at approximately 7.8 cycles per second. This was a constant fixed number until 1986 into 1987. It rapidly began increasing to about 9 cycles per second in 1996. So in one decade, it increased by about 2 cycles per second. By 2012, this pulse will be right around 13 cycles per second, just as the Fibonacci theory indicates. What does this mean for humanity? Just as cymatics has shown that higher frequencies result in more complex patterns, we are now experiencing the beginning of a major shift in both physical and spiritual vibration. It's difficult to understand what exactly will happen to our physical bodies, but ancient scriptures, pagan and monotheistic religions, mystery schools, and secret fraternal orders have all given indications as to what this experience will be like. This will be the shift of the ages, the transcendental period of monumental changes to humanity. Those unprepared for this transition will likely not be able to cope with the rapid changes in the psyche. The only way to prepare for what is to come is what we have sought after for our entire lives: truth. Not the truth about governments, commerce, religions, terrorism, or anything external, but the truth within ourselves, within our psyche and our shadow self. Especially in Western cultures, we are taught that being normal means only being happy and never sad, only loving and never angry, only forgiving and never jealous. This sounds plausible, but it is not. We are not meant to repress any negative emotions because it causes imbalance. To conquer our emotions, we must embrace them, not fight them. We must acknowledge them and allow them to serve their purpose as we learn from them. The ancient Essene culture left teachings dating back about 6,000 years. They taught that our relationships with one another, with the universe, and with situations and events are mirrors of the parts of our psyche that need to be cleansed. Author Greg Braden beautifully explains this entire segment at great length in his work. His hard work and understanding of these subjects contributed largely to the marriage between science and spirituality.
The water molecules, the pyramid power around the DNA spiral energizing strands are taking in the spiritual energy of love vibrations and then sending it out for manifesting, precipitating in a quantum field the physical matter of the body. These are hertz, frequencies, or cycles per second that the musicians can retune their instruments to play and experiment with. Why? Again, these are the Creator's musical scale, the original solfeggio, buried for 3,000 years in the Bible. So the ancient priests who knew how to levitate the huge stones for the building of the pyramids, and the Masonic knowledge that predated ancient Egypt, the ability to have this information, these frequencies, serve the function of creation, destruction, and miracles on behalf of the empowered people who had access to this knowledge. I say that because of this metaphor. This is the difference between the power of our Creator and anything else.
Okay, let's have a discussion over religion versus spirituality. Actually, this topic is so deep, so vast, that it is a very short time to discuss. I ended up that I have finished only 50 slides and I was having 34 slides, so we are really short of time. Okay, let's have a discussion over this slide. So, when we talk about religion, then when we practice any religion, Hinduism, Christianity, or Islam, or Sikhism, or Jainism, or Buddhism, whatever religion we practice, each religion has certain practices, certain beliefs, certain sort of belief systems, certain regulations. Whereas when we talk about spirituality is about experiencing the truth within ourselves, the truth inside our own spirit. So spirituality is more about to search for the reasons. It's about our quest for searching for the questions. It's about looking for the answers to what we think, who we are, and where we want to be. And when we talk about religion, then religion is associated with some kind of fear. When we practice certain religion, we think that if I do this, the God will do this thing. If I do this, this will happen to me. Whereas in the spirituality, the whole principle of spirituality is based on love. That we love each other, we love mankind without making any restrictions. One of the reasons, one of the things which always dominates our mind is where is the God? What is God? When the religion talks about God or reaching God, how can we reach God? But the spirituality only focuses is something beyond God. God is not only the place, not only the person where we want to go or where we want to reach, but it is something beyond that dimension. It is about, God is only a means to achieve that goal of permanent happiness or bliss or that eternal truth. In religion, when we talk about religion, each follower of a certain religion, each believer, a person who believes in a certain religion, he can say, oh, this is the only religion and this is the only God, and all else are disbelievers. Everything else is superfluous and this is the only religion. So if a person comes out with such sort of beliefs that this is the only religion and these are the only practices which a mankind should do, then I object to that religion, because religion have no foundations. When we talk about religion, all religions have their own beauty. So religion is only a tool to make ourselves free from the attachment from this materialistic world, to experience that eternal truth, the truth of our very existence, the truth why we came to this world, the truth to see the question of our very existence. What I have not done and what I have yet to. It's not about taking our own beliefs. It's about actually reasoning. It's about logical reasoning. A truth seeker or a spiritual seeker does not believe in any old consensus. He carved out a truth of his own. He looks for the reasons, he looks for the logical interpretation of religion or for spirituality. He don't believe the existing. He makes his own investigation for truth. He looks within himself that what is there which needs to be fixed. The whole universe, the whole world, the whole nature, the birds, the sun and everyone else around us is fixed. We need not to do anything with the planet, yet we complain about the planet is not working good or we need to fix the planet. There is nothing which needs to be fixed outside. The planet is working well, the solar system is working well, everything is perfect, but what's wrong is within ourselves. The whole problem within us is that in this such a big universe, there is such a big solar system, and there are so many galaxies, and in such a big planet, in such a big country like Korea, and in such a big city like Korea, you are big, in Gwangju, you are a big man. This is the biggest problem. So the biggest problem is that we human beings, we are the human beings, and we don't know how to handle the external situation, the situations we are perceiving. Whatever behavior we do perceive, our hatred, our vengeance or our retaliation towards our enemies is only a reaction. Because we do react, we don't perceive, we don't make sensible decisions, because we are so much believe, we are so much moved by the sense perception that we only believe in senses, and senses are outward bound. Senses don't know what is going within me, inside me. Let us suppose that if scientists come out with a revolutionary discovery, is it possible that we can take our spirit out of our body? Let us suppose that I am Ashish. I do some meditation, I do some technology, I apply some technology, any technology whatsoever. If I am able to put and keep out my spirit or my soul out of my body, then I think I can perform, I can operate on my body well. Because if we work on computer, we work on iPhone, we can work on any other technological instrument if we have access to that. The problem in spirituality, the problem with our spirit, or the problem with this very existence inside us is that we don't have access to our soul. We can look inside, and it is difficult for us to look inside because we have not practiced anything to activate this power of spirituality within us. Just like we purchase a cell phone, we need connection, and unless it is being activated by the connector or with telecom provider, we don't receive any sort of calls, either inbound or outbound. We don't receive any sort of calls. So it is the activation which is required. When we talk about spirituality, then we need to activate the spirit within us, the kundalini within us. There are so many different people, some people are different, like Newton, Einstein, or who came out with breakthroughs and revolutions in the science because they awakened the kundalini, the chakras within themselves, with their meditation, with their thought process. So when we talk about some of the deepest concerns of this world is breaking the thought barriers. When we talk about the modern day living, how can we improve our life, how can we seek the peace, is that we need to break our thought barriers. The literates of 21st century or the literates of this century are not those who load the data from their preconceived notions or the information which we have from our ancestors. The literates of this century are those who can learn, relearn and unlearn. It is about unlearning as well, to forget if our beliefs are not right and there is no way in practicing them. The problem with us is that we don't know how to react, how to deal with the situations, how to deal with the things. We actually react based on our physical reality rather than the true reality or spiritual reality. I think we are already out of time. Okay, I think I can bind up at this slide itself because time is very short and it's 16 slides, so I will have to bind up, although I was having 34 slides. So last slide, of course, for the day. When we talk about spirituality as an art of living, so with this technology and with these gadgets or the gadgets with us, we are actually making our life complex. It is the very nature of human being that we don't like complexities. But why? It's an irony of the fate that why are we making our life complex when we can live a life of simplicity? A very great example is Mahatma Gandhi, who is a great inspiration for all of us who want to create simplicity in their life. So why not we practice our life with a Vedic style, as per the Gandhian thought? Because if you realize Gandhian thought, that it was about thinking in the heart. Thinking in the heart, it was not about thinking in the mind. There are two types of thinking, head thinking and heart thinking. When we talk about head thinking, then head thinking is separated thinking. When we think or come out with any sort of conclusion or any sort of theory or anything or any circumstance with head thinking, then we realize only logically. Our decisions in head thinking are based on only one aspect, only one dimension. But when we talk about heart thinking or soul thinking, or when we come out, when we decide or come out with any sort of answer to any situation with a spiritual element within us, then it is a total and holistic thinking. So what is required, what is the need of the day, what is the need of the modern times, is that the leaders of the present world, the researchers of this present world, and the scientists of this present world, what we need is that we need to have a spiritual element, because without a spiritual element, we are nothing. We can't claim our existence without a spiritual element within us. Thank you.